Hi everyone. Uh, Bradley here. This is kind of a late update. Um, I'm posting two updates today, and one of them was an update from, I want to say, 3 or 4 months ago, um, that I never got around to posting. So it's that one's out of date. And because it's been such a long time without me giving updates, I uh, don't quite remember everything that happened. Um, but this is going to be a longer update, a more substantial update. So I just wanted to give that warning up front. And so thank you for being with me, staying with me through this video, however much you're going to watch. Um, I really appreciate it. So my last update was kind of talking about my last scan. I believe that there was a switch in treatment, as well as adding in my TPN. As you can see, I'm not attached to any tubes right now, so I don't have TPN hooked up. I don't have my IV bag full of sugar. Oh, Freya's here as well. There she is. Oh, what a cutie. Um, Yeah, and so that means that like my blood sugars are okay and don't need to be in check, which is amazing because honestly, being tethered to a big old backpack with an IV bag and pumping it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is really, 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 really annoying. Um, with that being said, there was chemo, the chemo that I had started around that time. I got another scan after that last update, um, and it showed that that chemo wasn't working, so I've switched to another one, um, and I've just recently completed like my second round of that. It's still like an infusion in the hospital every 2 weeks, and then 2 days with a chemo pump after that infusion. So I had my last infusion this last Wednesday. I'm going back in 2 weeks, or in a week. Um, and yeah. Um, and unfortunately, this is I'm like officially in like uncharted, really, really uncharted territory with my treatments. Basically, if I wasn't a young and relatively healthy person, aside from the terminal cancer, they would have stopped treatments by now. They wouldn't continue. The treatments that I'm doing right now, there is basically no data on how it's going to help or if it's going to help. So we're kind of just like throwing combinations of chemos together, that are approved and whatever else, right? We're not just mad scientisting it where there is some sort of approval process for these drugs. But for like how they're going to help my specific cancer, my grade of cancer, my ultra rare category of this rare cancer, how they're going to help, that is there's no data on. And I knew that that was coming. entering this like final stage of treatment, and still having these conversations with my doctor and whatever else has really kind of brought the reality to the situation, the gravity of the situation. And it has caused me to really look at the things that are important to me. My doctor has been saying from the very beginning, do the important things now. And it's hard to know what those things are, especially at 25, getting diagnosed at 25. It's hard to know what those things are. And also me as a procrastinator, find this task a little challenging. To do the important things now in this limited amount of time. And a part of this process for me is doing this on my terms, doing this in a way that I feel good about, and doing this, I mean dying, because that's kind of where I'm at right now with these treatments. I don't know how long this treatment is gonna keep me healthy for. Healthy, dealing with debilitating side effects all the time. And how long it's going to last. And then after that, because I have made the decision that, depending on how this treatment goes, this treatment or whatever the next one is going to be my last treatments. So I've, made this decision to approach this transition that I'm facing with my death in the most mindful and present way that I can. And part of that is not feeling so bad all the time in terms of dealing with side effects, because I don't need to feel the crappy effects of my cancer on top of, these side effects. So I'd rather just have one. And coming to this decision with my family and my amazing partner, who in the last few months, these holiday season, has faced so much loss. Her mom and her grandmother, and now looking at this transition journey with me, it's been a lot. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in this video was the idea of hope, because I don't want anybody to misconstrue this decision that I've made of choosing to stop treatment and to, what some people would call giving up, or stopping to fight, or whatever that thing is. Not choosing life. And for me, I have spent so much of my life wanting to die, wanting to be dead. middle school, high school, college, like just wishing every single day, having just fantasies and daydreams about being dead, just not being around. And as I have worked and healed myself and integrated myself and seen that these parts of me, these dark shadow horrible parts, are part of me, are part of my experience, and that have ultimately led me to some of the most beautiful, profound, loving moments with myself. And I love myself now. And that's part of what this is for me, is me loving myself. Wanting to face this this experience, this transition, and that's kind of how I'm phrasing it, is, or framing it, as a transition and not an ending. But facing this transition as taking it as one of the most, if not the most important thing that I have ever done or will do in my life, which is kind of funny, is being like, my death is the most important thing that I'm going to do in my life. But that's also my life too, born on April Fool's Day. I appreciate the dark humor, the irony, of spending my life wanting to die and then finally being like, I'm choosing life, and then getting hit with a terminal illness. Like, that is hilarious. Whoever wrote this script is freaking funny. And I love it, and I'm here for it. And so with that, like, I'm not giving up the will to live. I am choosing to die, but as a part of life. And I think that is something that we don't talk about. Death is uncomfortable, and people dying is uncomfortable, and we say such the wrong things to the dying and to the grieving. And there's this element of hope that can be so beautiful and loving, and also so toxic at the same time. And I want to start, I want to introduce people to the concept of toxic positivity. And people are like, how is positivity toxic? It's something that, as a person who is experiencing a cancer diagnosis, a terminal cancer diagnosis, experience very frequently. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just that we aren't taught how to navigate these situations very well. It's difficult to have these conversations and to learn about these situations and experiences because they are uncomfortable. But toxic positivity is basically like masking the reality of the situation with positivity. And you can do it yourself by, saying, I just got to stay positive. I just got to stay positive and work through it, and it's going to be fine. That's a very typical response, right? Of, I just got to think positive and be positive, and it's going to work out. And that mindset it can be toxic, because it doesn't always work out. And that type of experience and that type of mindset of, I always have to be positive, invalidates those negative experiences, invalidates those unpleasant experiences, those unpleasant feelings and emotions. And those unpleasant experiences have a lot to teach us. That's a lot of where our growth happens, right? Like, get out of your comfort zone, right? Like, out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable. That's where that growth happens. And as a cancer patient, I experience it quite frequently with how people respond to me. And I'm going to give one example um, that happened when I first um, moved back to Connecticut, like when I was first diagnosed. I was at a gas station, and somebody from my high school pulled up at the pump next to me, and it was somebody that like I knew and was friendly with, but we weren't like friends. And I said, hey, how's it going? And we started talking, and, inevitably it came up of like, why are, like, what are you doing now? What are you working? And I, while being like sickly still, being like, I have cancer and it's not good. And maybe a little oversharing. And I could tell that he was very uncomfortable and didn't quite know how to respond. And our pumps both like at the same time, and we were done pumping our gas, and the conversation was kind of ending, and he was like, you're gonna be fine, right? And I kind of responded yeah, but like it's not really that type of cancer, like it's not a good type of cancer. And he said, no, you'll be fine. Like you're gonna handle it. You're gonna do well. And then he got into his truck and left. And I was very confused by that because that's kind of how toxic positivity feels. It feels very much more about the person who's giving it than the receiver, right? And that's not necessarily the intention of the giver. But him saying, "Oh, you're gonna be okay," felt more reassuring to him than it was to me. The best interactions, the best ways that people interact with me are acknowledging my situation. I cope with really dark humor. I joke all the time about dying and death and dark humor all the time. And my friends will say something and go, oh, like I didn't mean it. And I'm like, dude, like get on my level. Like, please, like be here with me, be in this space. One of the best greetings that I have gotten from somebody I hadn't seen or talked to in a while, but they greeted me and said, "Oh, you're still alive. Cool." And I love that. It made me feel so seen, right? Of being like, I'm happy you're here with us, and also that you're dying. And so that's like toxic positivity is gross and bad, and really doesn't, and it is in a lot of different avenues, right? Anybody who's experienced something traumatic or in a situation that is so unimaginable to the regular everyday person, whether that is whatever it is, and they've experienced that, like, oh, just you gotta keep on trucking, right? You gotta stay positive, keep on smiling, just think positive, and it'll happen for you. And you can feel that in you, and you can, or for me, when somebody says that, my despair deepens. Like, I lose hope when people say that to me. Because part of it is that they say it like it's so easy. And that it just changes the reality. The reality of my diagnosis from the very beginning has been a terminal diagnosis. It's just about how much time I had. And frankly, I've been living on borrowed time since I've been 25. And now I'm a month away from my 29th birthday. And I've been told that basically my 29th birthday is a guarantee and that my 30th birthday is not. And I've been living since 25 as each year, each day, each moment can be my last. I love the spring. Each spring can be my last spring. Every flower that I pass, every bud that is blooming might be the last time that I experience that. And I've been living that way since 25. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to live, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And also, now it's very apparent, right? That this actually might be my last year to experience any of this. The last time that I experienced any of this. And I've had to accept that and live with that this entire time. And I've known that this cancer is bad and that clinical trials will only buy me more time and that this isn't, this isn't good. And so many times I've been confronted with people trying to comfort me, of trying to give me their hope, the hope that they are holding for me to live, by offering me, cancer research changes so fast, and there's always new treatments and new cures, and there's clinical trials, and I heard this this treatment that cured everybody, and they're all this, and for me, I've never denied that. I've never not acknowledged that. That's always been that's always been a thing, right? I've always been open to the possibility that there's going to be a clinical trial and they're going to be like, oh my God, pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors are cured from this one shot, and it's amazing, miracle. I'm about that life, believe me. And also, that's very much not the reality of the situation. It's not where I live. That's not how I operate out of. I can't operate out of that. If I operated for the last 3 years, 4 years out of that place and putting my hope and intention in a clinical trial, then the actual experience of my death would blindside me. And it's hard to manage that in other people. And I think that this brings me to my conversation of hope. And I just use the phrase of the hope that somebody is holding for me. The idea of holding hope was introduced to me through therapy and working in the mental health field, and how do you help those people who are so depressed, so hopeless, lost in despair, so much so that they can't help themselves, so much so that all they can do is stop themselves from killing themselves. And it was, part of the support is to hold that hope. They might not have that hope, but I'm going to hold it for them until they have the capacity to hold it for themselves, right? I'm going to love this person until they have the capacity to love themselves. And there's whole conversation with what that means and the boundaries and, everything like that. But holding hope is something that I have learned to do. So much of my internal experience has been that hopelessness. Being in a place without light. Being in a place where there is no way to escape. There might be an escape, but I don't know the way. There's no way. And through my intention of healing and coming together and being a cohesive, integrated person, other people have held hope for me so many times in my life. Whether that's therapists or girlfriends, partners, my family, friends, whoever, strangers. And I have determined to repay them by holding it for myself. And being able to do that has allowed me to hold hope for others. And to walk in a way that I know that even if I am in that dark place with no escape, I am light. And my diagnosis and my experience with that has solidified that for me. And I feel that as part of this journey, as my transition into my death, I want to do it as present and mindful as I can. And to me, that is facing the reality of the situation as best I can. And the hope that I hold for myself is that it's not that I have a miracle cancer cure or something. That would be cool. I'm open for that. That's solid. But my reality, my experience is that I am going to die and that I am going to do that on my terms. I'm going to do that face forward. I'm going to do that as a warrior that I know I am. And part of that is the surrender to this. And that kind of sounds funny to talk about being a warrior and surrendering. But that's how I've learned how to fight. That's how I've learned how to be, is to go with that flow, to soften into that dance, to not be rigid. When I was initially introduced to the concept of surrender, I fought it because I hated that idea. I hated that idea of giving up. And now I've learned that the surrender that I'm talking about isn't giving up, it is the most radical acceptance. And it is all that I can do, is to do that. Is to live in that radical acceptance, that place of surrender. And to stand there and to be with that. And that's what I mean about, that's what a warrior is. They give themselves for their cause. They give everything that they have for their people. They give everything that they have for their values and their character. And that is part of the hope that I hold for myself. That I can have this experience present and in the best way that I know how. And to face this unknown. And I think that, to me, this is the best example of what I mean when I talk about hope. And it's going to sound not very hopeful. A lot of people are my experience of hope in others is very similar to like the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know this is counter to my framework of viewing my death as a transition and not an end. But this is how extreme the feeling that I have and the hope that I have and the way that I intend to live the rest of my life is. So it's not necessarily the framework, it's the extreme intensity of the feeling of hope. Hope is, in my experience of hope from others, is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's something more. I get to continue. And to me, hope is so much more of a hole. A hole that is 6 feet in the ground. That we ultimately return to. And what is the hope there, right? Of this dichotomy of we continue, we continue on, right? I'm living, or we die and we're nothing. To me, the hope there is that confronted with that darkness, confronted with that place of no escape. That is how we see our strength. When we are at the most blackest, deepest level of despair, confronted with the entire lack of hope, what happens? How do we move forward? How do we live? And for me, that is experiencing each and every moment to its fullest, being like, this is the last spring that I'm going to have. The last hike that I'm going to have with my dog. The last time that I'm going to see my friends and my family. I'm going to be as present and mindful of those experiences as that I possibly can. And to me, that is hope. And that is something that is such an intense feeling, is so massive. That level of hope, that hope in the face of infinite void, is something that we need to hold together. It's so big that one single person can't do it. And I think that is some of the reason why so many people in our life, in our society, especially kids, is that they don't know how to hold that hope, and others don't know how to hold that hope. And it takes healing and integration and love and intention and support and others holding that hope for us to become that vessel for ourselves. And for me, that has allowed me to be open to whatever possibilities happen. When I'm living presently and in the moment, I don't have to choose to live or to die. I am both, as we all are. And it's being in this in-between and being so connected to the present moment that it doesn't matter whether I'm living or dying, I'm here experiencing. I guess what I'm trying to say about hope is that it's dirty. You can't just stay positive all the time. You can't just put your hopes and dreams in clinical trials and, oh, somebody else is going to care about the climate. Somebody else is going to care about these kids who are killing themselves in droves. Somebody else is going to care about the epidemic of sexual violence and violence against women and trans people. And someone else is going to do that. Like, we have to hold hope for each other. Because it is dirty. And hope is dirty. And hope it needs to have reality in it. We need to hold that hope and hold that space for the validation of everyone's experience and also the collective support of that experience. I recently had a conversation with my family about what that means to me in this transition in this time that I have moving forward, what it means to support me, to hold not the hope that they have for me to live and to have a clinical trial and to whatever, but to hold the hope that I have for myself, for me to be present during my death, to me to be present with my family and my friends and the people that I love and the people that I choose to have to be around me in this most important moment of my life. And this to me was doing the important things that my doctor talked about. It wasn't, I want to travel and skydive and, complete my bucket list. There was definitely that, this aspect of logistical things. These things that I want to check off my material world to-do list. But to me, the most important thing was the presence and connection with the people that I love. And with myself in relationship to this transition, this death. And for me, it was the best way that they could do that was to support themselves and to heal themselves and to get to a point where they were able to be present with me in that way as I'm being present in that way. Because when you're caught up in your bullshit, you can't be present. When you're caught up in that motherfucker just cut me off, you can't be present in the moment. And that's not to say that those emotions and those feelings aren't part of the present moment. But they take away from the mindful experience, right? They hijack that perception. They hijack that internal experience, and you get caught up in those things, right? Rather than staying more mindful and objective and saying, okay, what are these unpleasant experiences teaching me, telling me? So that you got to deal with that bullshit. And I'm doing the same. And a part of that for me is having to really honor this experience, this transition that I'm going through. And being gentle with myself and realizing that I can't do everything. And that I can't help myself. No, what am I saying? I'm saying that I am struggling with this idea of losing my independence and needing to rely on people more and more and ask for help for more and more things that I don't want to need help with at 29 years old. Having semi-joking conversations with my girlfriend of being like, I might need you to change my diaper, clean up my puke, you know. And a part of that is this conversation of how to support me and how to support myself and being gentle with myself and still doing this healing integration process on me while I'm going through this. How I know how to be mindful of the situation. That's how I know how to hold hope for myself. And what hope means for me in this time now. This part of my life that I'm facing moving forward. And to me, I got this idea tattooed on me so that I see it every single day. And I got it on my laptop died. So I got this tattooed on my hands, right? And it is in reverse so that when I look at my hands, it says hold hope. The letters, the font is from my oldest brother, Brendan's handwriting, some of his sobriety journals. And I think that it is very appropriate that this lettering comes from that place. Not only because he's my brother and he died and I was holding hope for him through his life and through his relationship with addiction and drugs. But also because it illustrated to me like the grittiness of hope. The sobriety journals that I found these letters in was started in the front and the back. And meaning that he started writing and journaling the front of this journal, stopped, flipped the book around, and started again in the back. And both times it was the same. The front and back entries started with such gratitude and such joy and happiness at being sober and filled with thank you God for my sobriety and my life and my family and that they're reconnecting with me, and him going on and on about the gratitude that he felt about the healing that he experienced in his sobriety. And both the entries in the front and back of this journal progressed the same way. They started in sobriety and then going to the struggle and then going to relapse. Thank you, God, for this sobriety, for my family, for my life. Why is this so hard? Why can't I do this? Why is there no escape? And then the relapse. And these letters, this hold hope, came from me choosing out of these different words. The E coming from where he wrote his name. The O coming from somewhere he wrote God. The H, a thank you, you know. But to me, it really shows the dirtiness of hope that needs to be acknowledged, I think, needs to be acknowledged. That kind of dirty hope is where I am living, where my life is, what I'm experiencing on a daily basis. This hope that is challenging to accept. This hope, how can hope be for somebody dying? No, my hope isn't to die, it's to live my death well. That is my hope. My mom wrote a poem about my brother's death that I think illustrates this even better than my hope is a light at the end of the tunnel versus a grave in the ground. And I'm going to end this update by reading this poem. It is called Sun as Hawk. And I've never gotten through this without crying, so bear with me. Sun as hawk. Look up, Ma. I'm without tether or boundary. Ma, I fly. Lift and rise with the currents. Wave after wave. This is my forever now. Above history, above struggle, to keep blood and bone with body. My body needed free, Ma, of the belt around my arm. What I want to tell you, Ma, is how awful it was not to die. And for me, that poem sums up and encapsulates so much of my experience and my hope for my brother during his life and death, and also my experience. I was diagnosed with this terminal illness at 25, and since then I've had a number of different things that have happened that without serious medical intervention I would have died. And I've been living on borrowed time. And I've been grateful for every single second of that. My life in the last 3 or 4 years has been the most meaningful and special and important times of my life. Paling in comparison to the rest. And that doesn't mean it was any less or more important, just the weight and the gravity and the presence that I have felt since my diagnosis has been immense. And I have felt this diffusion of myself and this expansion of myself and this growing of energy inside of me as I get closer to my death, to my transition point. And I know that that is for something. And I know that there is a purpose to that. And if that purpose is just to be as present and connected with my loved ones for the short time that I have left, and then after that it's curtains closed, good. I'm fine with that. Because I know that I lived fully each and every day. And that is the hope that I hold for all of you. My hope is that we all live in that presence and that we all heal and integrate and love ourselves completely and wholly so that we may do that for others. So we may do that so others can do it for themselves. I do this so my relatives may live. And it's dirty and hard. And my days are not spent meditating and in this state of zen and om and presence. They're hard and challenging, and I spend a lot of my time just in bed. And that's part of this, part of my experience and my journey and me being present for it. Being present for those moments without being hijacked by them. Being present for my discomfort and uncomfortability and whatever else without wallowing in that, without getting absorbed in that. By being present and mindful and experiencing that as part of the beauty of this life. Death and suffering are as natural as birth. And we celebrate birth and tend to shy away from death and these hard, dirty conversations. And my hope is that you all have stuck with me and allowed us to be present together through this weird virtual medium. Because a part of this for me and being diagnosed so young is, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind? And for me, these videos are a part of that. And why I speak so candidly and frankly about these things, because I know that my life will have meaning and be accomplished if a fraction of what I say makes a fraction of a difference in one person. And I already know yes, I'm going to end there with gratitude for you being with me in this moment as I am in this moment. And thank you for supporting me and holding that hope. I hope that this helps to support you and shows that I'm holding hope for you all as well. Because we are all relatives and we are all sacred. Talk to you soon.